Let's talk now, though, about something completely different. Des Collins is a senior partner at Collins Solicitors. They've been representing people who were victims of the contaminated blood scandal from many, many years ago. They represent 1,500 victims of the scandal, but finally, I think, they managed to get some good news for them. Des, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Tell us a little bit about the case, first of all, Des. How long has this been running? And have you now finally got something somewhere where you wanted to go?
It's somewhere where we want to go. You've got it right there. We've been acting on this for the best part of 5 or 6 years, right. But the case has been going on one way or another for 40 years. There have been several false dawns. There's several points where the victims thought they were about to get a breakthrough, and each time it just hasn't happened. Now, this morning, with the press release from the Cabinet Office, yes, it looks like we have got a breakthrough, but when you look at the small print, the devil is always going to be in the detail. And without wishing to be unnecessarily, I hope, negative about it, what we have is a situation whereby a number of very, very deserving victims have been chosen to receive interim payments, but the presentation by the Cabinet Office is such that you could be fooled into thinking that everyone's going to get an interim payment. Now, what we have is a situation whereby, as you mentioned, we act for about 1,500 people. I'd say about a third of those people will receive an interim payment, and that is good news. We must never forget that. But the fact that the other two-thirds will not, and the excuses or otherwise which have been provided for that non-payment, are causing a lot of grief to the people who are not receiving an interim payment this morning.
No, of course. And many people, of course, have lost loved ones because of this contamination, people who got hepatitis, people who got HIV, and some of those relatives of those victims are saying, you know, nobody's taking any account of their loss, if you like.
That's precisely so. I mean, what the people who have been singled out are the victims who are still alive and the widows of those victims who have died. Primarily, but not exclusively, the people who have been missed out of this round are the parents who've lost children and the children who have lost parents. Now, we put that position to the public inquiry last month. It didn't find favour with the public inquiry. The recommendation from Sir Brian Langstaff to the Cabinet Office was to restrict the compensation and interim payments as has been seen by the Cabinet Office statement this morning. It doesn't mean that nothing will ever happen, but when you've been living with this for 40 years and you've seen false dawn after false dawn, and more particularly this morning, where you read the Cabinet Office statement, it doesn't actually mention the people who have not received interim payments. It's almost as if they've been airbrushed out of existence. And primarily what these people have fought for 40 years is recognition. What they see this morning is the complete absence of recognition.
Yes. And has there ever been a satisfactory explanation in your view? I mean, we all know what happened, that blood products were being bought from overseas, a lot of them from America, where people were being paid to give blood. Many of them weren't even tested for HIV or for hepatitis or anything. But has anybody actually explained how it was possible that could have happened and why they're going to ensure it never happens again?
That evidence has been examined in great detail by the public inquiry over the past 3 years. It's been going on for longer than that, but over the past 3 years in particular, it's heard evidence as to how all this slipped through the net, as it were. What is possibly more worrying than how it happened is how it happened to be covered up when it had happened. And that is the issue which concerns the inquiry. That's the issue which concerns the victims, that you have a situation where mistakes happen. They're awful. They shouldn't happen. We all know that. But once you've made that mistake, own up to it and make sure it doesn't happen again. If you cover it up, then you are more likely to have a repetition of history, and that's what the inquiry is trying to ensure doesn't happen on this occasion. But yes, it's the covering up of the issue which is more important, I think.
No, of course. And the payments, they say, will hopefully be made as quickly as possible, hopefully by October. What's the next move from your perspective?
From our perspective, we will push the Cabinet Office to make sure that stop date of the end of October is adhered to, and in particular, we will push the Cabinet Office to provide an explanation for how these payments are going to be made and on what basis they're going to be made. That has not been provided to the public or to the victims at the moment. And if someone comes up to you in the street and says, "Hey, buddy, would you like £100,000? The first thing you're going to say is, well, are there any strings? Does it? So, to use that example, I mean, it's very important that the victims know if they take this money, are they going to be prevented from seeking other compensation in due course? What does it represent? How soon will it be paid? And if they are going to receive any further money, give us an indication of how much that's likely to be. Because they will need to know whether they should put this in a nest egg for the grandchildren very often, or whether they go on that long hope-for world cruise because another 100 is going to come in next month, next year. We don't know, and that information should be provided to the victims immediately.
Yes. Well, thank goodness something at least has happened, and Des, all credit to you for fighting on their behalf. Des Collins, their senior partner at Collins Solicitors, who represents an awful lot of victims of this particular blood poisoning scandal, because that's what it was, let's face it. Some people now are going to be getting £100,000 in payment, but yet still some kind of details of all of that to be ironed out. We'll bring you those as and when we find out.